I would like to call the City of Twinsburg Caucus meeting for April 27th, 2021 to order. It is now 7 p.m. The meeting is being held with council and public in person following the current COVID-19 guidelines. The meeting is also streamed live on the city's YouTube channel. Shannon, please call the roll.
Ms. McFerrin?
Here.
Mr. Scafidi? Mrs. Stoffer?
Here.
Mr. Barr?
Here.
Mrs. Walker?
Present.
Mr. Bellin?
Here.
Mr. Fury?
Here.
Do we have any presentations this evening?
There are none.
Are there any items for discussion?
There are none.
Do we have any audience participation?
There is none.
Okay, moving on to pending legislation. On ordinance 21, 2020, this is to amend section 127 of the codified ordinances regarding making the representative on the Capital Improvements Board non-board specific. This will be on its third and final reading tonight. Is there any discussion on this ordinance?
Yeah, I would like to pass over this particular piece of legislation this evening. You know, it most strongly affects Mr. Scafidi as it's in his ward. And I just don't think it would be right for us to act on this without him being here.
Correct. Any other discussion?
Agreed.
Mr.
Mr.
Mason.
Mason.
Mrs. McFerrin, if I could, I agree with Mr. Bellin, and if we're going to do that, we have an opening on that board, and we haven't posted that yet because we're not sure if we're posting it for citywide or ward specific. And I think that, you know, in 2 weeks when we're here and revisit this, if we could post that tomorrow and get that posted ward specific for Ward 1, and if we have Ward 1 applicants during that posting period, it might solve this issue of 2021, being that if somebody applies, they're Ward 1 and council decides to move forward in that direction, then we could stay ward specific for the time being because we'd have somebody in every ward. So just wanted council's thoughts on that.
I think that that's not necessary. I think we could pass this over and not take any action because the Capital Improvement Board doesn't meet till the fall, and it's April. I mean, so if we could have this done by the end of May, advertise it, and in June have this all wrapped up, still 2 months before the Capital Improvement Board meets.
Well, if you have it done at the end of May, for example, then we have to post it for 30 days.
Mhm.
That puts us to the end of June. Then you'll have one meeting in July to interview and appoint before they start meeting, because they'll be meeting by the end of August when you reconvene. So while it appears that we do have time, when you look at the timeline, it gets a little tight. So that was the thought of getting the ball rolling with the advertisement now. But, you know, council's choice on what you want to do on that, because we have that opening now. It's a convenient opportunity, I guess, to try once again for a Ward 1 representative.
I have been contacted by several people in Ward 1, even though that's not my ward, that say they are going to apply for that role. Should we advertise for it? So I don't, and I know council, I know we all have received at least one email from
Right.
somebody in Ward 1 that said that. So I guess my point is, you know, I think the whole purpose of this particular piece of legislation was we tried and we didn't get anybody that, you know, that applied for it. It doesn't appear that that's going to be the case now. So I guess if you're asking for direction, my suggestion would be post it as ward specific, because I don't think we're going to have the issue that necessitated the legislation to begin with.
Because if you posted it ward specific and it does go to non-ward specific, I mean, we could just extend the advertisement.
Well, we could extend it, or if we have enough Ward 1 candidates that you think you can get a good candidate out of that group, then you can just vote this legislation
I
down.
would tell you that, but I think the intention was to try to fill it with a Ward 1 person.
Exactly.
But in 2 years, if there's no interest, again, the idea was just to make sure that we could move forward. So I think that taking away still gives us the ability to try to have the diversity of wards, but it also frees us up in the same way that we did the Environmental Commission.
Right, I mean,
Mrs.
as we
Stoffer?
sit here today, the only way
Yeah.
we can advertise is ward-specific, because
Correct.
that's what's currently on the books. This is still pending.
I think we should just go ahead and advertise it ward specific, and then we can revisit it at our next meeting.
I'd agree with Mrs. Stoffer, I have no issue with that.
I agree. Mrs. Walker?
I think since we already have a candidate, or at least one, I don't know how many you have, you know, that are in Ward 1, why can't we not choose from that? Because right now, you know, these people are from Ward 1.
We haven't advertised it.
Okay, we have to advertise?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Resolution 35, 2021. This is to apply for the MSTBG funding for Canyon Road resurfacing in a special round of funding for 2023, 2024. This funding is not guaranteed. If approved, 80% of the project would be covered by federal funds in the amount of $540,000, with 20% being the city's responsibility, totaling $136,000. Or is that 135? Mrs. Moore also noted in her request that the Ravenna Road resurfacing was originally programmed for 2024, is now proposed to occur in 2022. Is there any discussion?
You have Amy here.
Amy?
I didn't know I wrote it that good. Now I understand. I didn't need to come, right? I did wanted to read you the letter I got from AMATS. AMATS committee, it was a letter addressed to all AMATS committee members, and the committees, both the TAC committee and the policy committee, have had special meetings on this thing. The letter says, the ongoing pandemic has created challenges and opportunities for AMATS programming in fiscal 2021. AMATS has worked hard to ensure federal funds are not subject to ODOT carry forward policy. That means if we don't spend our allotted money and we have too much money left over, ODOT can take that money back because they give us excess money. Based on bids coming in lower this year, we've experienced that with our own road program. They've experienced it with a number of ODOT AMATS projects. It's created a carryover of funds, and we have over-programmed in AMATS for the last couple of years, trying to avoid some of these things. I think there was a project that did cancel, and when a project cancels, it also creates a void in moving up. So we have told AMATS that there's application for 2022, and we had one in 2024, which was Ravenna Road out here. We told them we would be ready to bid that and move that up. And then, so we're eligible for the 2023, 2024 applications. The purpose of the round of funding is to allocate up to $5 million in funds available in 2022 and $6 million funds in 2023, 2024. So I think even though there might be a lot of applicants for it, there's a lot of money that's out there. They do limit the amount of money, so it's not all going to one because it's just a resurfacing program, because that has less environmental impact, and all the studies required with that, there's very minimal, so they can know they can use the money and spend the money. And then, just so you know, that if we don't get Cannon Road or Highland Road this time, they will also have a funding application in September like they normally do, which usually is for that 4 or 5 years out in funding, so it'd be for the 25-26 cycle. So you have two of them before you, the Cannon Road you just read, and I did make that a priority project, just because the hill is getting a little rough. We would have to do something there anyway, and then the second one's Highland Road. We get more points by determining which one's priority, so if you have some other issues with that, but I think timing-wise for Highland, we're in good shape, even though they pavement condition rating, they're about the same.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Now is there any discussion?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Resolution 36, 2021. This is to apply for the MSSTBG funding for Highland Road that we've already discussed. This was also for a special round of funding for 2023 and 2024 and is not guaranteed. If awarded, the project would have an 80-20 split, with the city's portion being $116,000 and the federal being, that's got to be switched around.
Hold on.
Because it's, no, that's right, and the
Federal's
federal being 464.
464 and 116, yes.
Okay. Moving on to Resolution 37, 2021. This is the conditional use permit for Dr. Larry J. Miller for a personal training studio in an R4 residential district. The Planning Commission held a public hearing and meeting on April 19th and approved the request 5-0, with the condition that the approval letter from the HOA be submitted. Is there any discussion?
Dr. Miller appeared before Planning Commission. And essentially what he's looking to do is some limited private personal training sessions and some physical therapy utilizing some equipment in the basement of his home. There are no group classes. This is not something that's going to take place early in the morning or late in the evening. He indicated that his hours most likely are going to be after 9 a.m. and probably conclude by about 3 p.m. And that he's, if this venture is successful, he may look at moving it to a larger commercial facility in due time. But at this stage of the game right now, he's just looking to operate a small business out of his home. It should also be noted that planning required Dr. Miller to seek approval from the Ethan's Commons Homeowners Association, and I believe Lynn Muter was sent a letter indicating that Ethan's Commons was all right with that. That's all I have.
Mr. Maestros, just a question. There in the on page 6 of this particular piece of legislation, there's a list of names and addresses there. Are those just are those
Those are the people
neighboring? Are they neighbors?
Those are the neighbors that were notified of
Okay.
the planning commission.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and they would not be part of the legislation itself, that's just the
Okay.
background information.
Gotcha, thank you.
So they were notified, but they didn't sign up, they didn't have to agree to anything, these are just the neighbors that were sent notice.
And there was no one at the public hearing.
Right.
They were told, they
Yeah.
received official notification of a meeting and what the request was.
So out of curiosity, why is it, this is just the people immediately surrounding him?
It's the contiguous property owners that they have to
Okay.
notify on the conditional use request.
Okay.
I have a question. Scott, you read there's going to be a small group of people. What small? I mean, 20 could be small.
1 to 2 people.
Is that in
Well,
there?
that would be the max then, 2 people?
I don't believe he stated a specific maximum, but I mean, there's not to be any on-street parking or anything like that. Also, given the physical space limitations of the actual property, I mean, there simply isn't room to put 20 people in Dr. Miller's basement.
So his basement, they stated that his basement is limited to X amount of people, right?
I don't believe they
client?
gave a specific number, but again, I mean, this is just he represented this as individualized physical therapy and/or personal training.
Probably happens a lot more, just people haven't come in and asked for that.
I would agree with Ms. McFerrin on that assessment.
Okay. Resolution 38, 2021. This is the quarterly approval for financial statements from January through March 2021. Any discussion? Moving on to miscellaneous. Does anyone have any miscellaneous items to discuss?
I do not.
No?
Nothing here?
So then the caucus meeting is now adjourned at 7:13.
Thank you.
Thank you.